days, then the lease ends. No matter where I go, I know I won't ever be home again. As my mama gets softer, my dad has gone gray. He doesn't remember what we talked about yesterday. I miss standing on sand. Nothing feels like it did. I can't remember land, and I feel sick. I just feel
We're going to talk about Nomad with the one and only Michael Tabie. Michael is a designer and an illustrator. How many of you already know Michael? Do I even have to read his bio? You've seen his work if you don't know who he is. I saw some hands, so you're amongst friends, Mike. But he's a designer, an illustrator, and for more than 20 years, he's traveled this country, maybe the world, doing that work. He currently serves as the full-time design director at a little place called Gorilla Suit. Anyone know Gorilla Suit? Oh, okay, some fans. Nice. He is an ink-slinging printmaker at heart. He fancies himself a collector of tattoos, which you can see, and bric-a-brac, which I asked Siri about this morning, by the way. Very interesting answer she gave me. He prefers cheap beer. Anyone else prefer cheap beer? Oh, okay. All right. Maybe not as many friends as you thought. Loves all things skulls. And would choose breakfast all day, every day. Yes, okay, we got some fans. Let's get them up here. Let's stop hearing from me. Let's hear from Michael Tabie on the intersection of creativity and Nomad. Help me welcome him to the stage. Mike.
Thank you, Creative Mornings, Ben, Brian, and Ann, and the volunteers who came in this morning to set everything up. Really appreciate y'all. Thank you to the Breakfast Taco Heroes as well. Very appreciated, and thank you all for coming. And also thank you to George P. Johnson for hosting us this morning. And thank you to Jess for performing. That was amazing. So, hello, my name is Mike. Ben already read my bio here, but I'm a designer, illustrator, and a full-time design director here with Gorilla Suit in Texas. I'm a maximalist. I collect tattoos, bric-a-brac, all kinds of nonsense. I love cheap beer. I am really a production nerd at heart, and if I could, I would eat breakfast all day, every day. Here is some of my recent-ish work. I definitely prefer the maximalism approach. If I can shove more stuff into a design, I'm going to. Usually I rely on my coworkers and my wife to tell me when it's too much. I really enjoy just high level of craft, illustration, typography, but I'm not really here to talk about what I do so much as how I got here. So, Nomad. When Ben shared the initial list of themes, I very much gravitated towards Nomad because this ties into, let's say, my less than traditional career path as a graphic designer. There are a few different nomad archetypes. I am not the restless wanderer or the lone sage. My experience is maybe a little closer to these guys. My career as a nomad was entirely by accident. It's more of an unexpectedly long journey in search of something. But before I get into it, in order to tell this story, I have to share some very old work, like 20-year-old work. So, as fellow creatives, I'm sure you all can understand the depths of cringe that I'm about to feel. So please be gentle with me. This is 20 agencies in 20 years, explained in hopefully 20 minutes, my career as a nomad. I've had what I think is a rare opportunity to work with a really wide range of agencies, as well as a wide range of clients. I even had my own agency for a little while with my partner, but that'll be a presentation for another day. But out of all of these, only 2 were real full-time jobs. My first job right out of school, and my current position as a design director here in Austin. This is the longest job I've ever had. I want to be clear though, when I say real, I mean, like that full-time salary, benefits, 401k, consistency, stability, security, that kind of thing. So my first real job. The beginning of my 20-year search. I started with a small 4-person design shop in Orlando, Florida called Lure Design. I didn't know it at the time, but this experience would be a major benchmark for me in what I wanted out of my career and the kind of people I wanted to collaborate with. It was a small, tight-knit team, room to grow, room to learn. We were just making cool shit together. Lure is known for its gritty rock poster aesthetic, which they brought to all of their work, but in particular, the rock poster. Small note, that little picture there of Paul and Sarah, or Jeff and Sarah, little skull in the back there, that's a recent photo. That chalk drawing I did 20 years ago. You can see there's our little print shop in the back, and that was 20 years when I did it. That was my desk, and these are some of the posters that I did while I was working there. I had the opportunity to really explore here. I pushed myself to make the coolest work I could in the fewest number of colors, because I was the one screen printing it. I also learned how to try to start applying this process to some of my other work. We were in Orlando, which meant we did work with Disney. Some of that poster work translated into album artwork later. But somewhere along the line, in school, I don't know, TVs, movies, my parents, I got this idea in my head that somehow this was what I was supposed to do, right? This was the process. I was young, this was my first job ever, and I never lived outside of Florida. So I left in search of my next career experience, looking for that full-time team where I could grow, learn, make cool shit with cool people. At the time, I really thought this was gonna be short, right? Maybe 1 or 2 moves, a few years here and there, I'd find my spot. I set out to visit friends across the country. I took as many interviews as I could. I went to a bunch of different cities, Boston, Chicago, LA. I eventually had one job offer. It just didn't quite feel right. At the time, I had a ton of friends that were in New York City. They were like, dude, just come over here. Don't plan, don't do nothing. Pack your bags, show up, you'll figure it out when you get here. To be honest, I was absolutely terrified. It was the last place I ever wanted to go. But one-way ticket, portfolio and a laptop, I started my couch surfing, street pizza freelance adventure. And again, I'll be honest, I really didn't think it was gonna last. I was like 2 years tops. I'm gonna wash out, come home, I'll figure it out. I ended up there for 10 years. My first few freelance opportunities were really the deep end of the pool, right? I started with that 4-person boutique agency, and I went to a 200-person multinational global design agency. I started to find my niche though. That maximalist tendencies worked really well in the packaging space, specifically beer and spirits, and I eventually found myself on the Captain Morgan's team. This is where that 20-year-old work comes in. I was doing a lot of what you would call new-to-world concept work. Crazy enough, that lime bite one there actually did make it to shelf. It tasted horrible. One of the other designers I was working with, we kept trying to pitch this idea to Captain Morgan. We're like, dude, push the captain to the back, man. Have him just be like a sign-off, right? Let's talk about his adventures. Let's talk about the ship. Let's talk about the sails. Let's talk about sea monsters. They're like, no sea monsters. Captain front and center. Of course, 6 months later, Kraken comes out, completely destroys the market, and then we get a little project brief next morning sitting on our desk called Kraken Killer. Yeah, y'all could have had a bad pitch. Got into some campaign work. This was me poking a little fun at the consumer profile that they had given us of what the typical Captain Morgan drinker looked like. His name is Smitty. No lie, his name is actually Smitty in the paperwork. Smitty, of course, loves stretched Hummers. Got into some more campaign work, did some work with Kettle One. This was all new to me. I went from rock posters to this stuff. Of course, I started to really get into my spirits work. This felt like rock posters to me. I was just like, I can do this, I'm just gonna make it smaller, right? Agency life crash course. This was me figuring it all out. Pinups, client managers, project managers, the hierarchy of it all, what it was like to work with production teams, the whole process. I learned how to speak agency, right? All the little code words. FPO, FOP, DD, CD, ACD, RFP, all that nonsense, right? But after each project, I kind of felt the same every time, man. This just isn't quite it. This isn't what I want. So I moved again and again and again. Always freelance, agencies big and small, in-house teams, industries I never thought I would work in. I got to work with a really cool fragrance and beauty agency at one point. I did some work with Sony, Nike SB, and I started to level up my spirits work, right? This is me getting into that sweet spot. More fonts, more fonts. I started leaning into how to push premium cues, how to get those nice finishes in there. Started getting better with renders and textures and all kinds of stuff. I even got to do more traditional CPG work as well. And somewhere along the line, I realized something. Maybe this bouncing around ain't so bad. Maybe in my search for long-term stability, I instead found freedom. My goal was no longer to land that full-time job. I was like, you know what, man? I'm just gonna be the specialist. Let's go, man. Nomad freelance life, right? I was able to choose what teams and projects I wanted to work on. I could stack my schedule up a month or two in advance and then take time off whenever I wanted for however long I wanted to. I became the design mercenary, or for the sake of this presentation, the design nomad. I kept doing this for a long time, right? And I had a really nice little tight-knit, group of agencies I was working with, and I got the reputation as the spirits guy. At this point, all the people I had started working with when I first got to New York were now all the CDs and the DDs at the other agencies. So I was being asked to come in, just do the initial exploratory phases of the project, bang out as much cool shit as I possibly could, get something approved by the client, and then just bounce to the next project. I was able to stay consistently booked. I was doing months out at a time, and I turned around and that turned into years. And I got my hands on some really cool stuff, even some fun wine rebrands. This never made it. Wine is fun, man. You can just get fucking weird with it. I was actually able to work with Kraken at one point. I did this kind of limited edition meerschaum pipe kind of carved bone thing. Of course, it's not cost effective. Really though, my sweet spot became whiskey. More fonts, right? More fonts, more type. Kind of my happy place at the time. And I finally got some stuff to hit shelf. I got to work on some really exciting rebrands. And I started to learn more and more about production, how to actually get these really cool effects to work. Like, how do you get this stuff on glass? I even started taking on my own clients around this time, aside from my agency work. Local breweries, some concert poster series for Jack Daniels. I actually got to go to that Grand Central Station show. It was wild to see a concert in the middle of Grand Central. This led to other agencies reaching out for more campaign work. I was really just leaning into that screen print vibe. I even had the opportunity to do some South by work and some ACL work long before I moved here. And of course, this was the chalk era. Everyone and their mother was doing chalk, so I did some chalk. Hard to tell, but that scaffolding right there is very precariously placed on 2 ladders over a 3-story stairwell. So I was sitting, I was not standing on that. I got into doing some rock posters again, even did some band merch. That is really dark, sorry about that. And some of these I was even printing out of my apartment at the time. I eventually got a real space and a real studio and built out a full print shop. And this led to book covers, some more concert posters, art prints, album artwork. It was a really exciting time for me, which turned into other types of client work, right? Things beget more work. Got to do a full custom alphabet for ESPN magazine. And of course, there's always money in the banana stand, more spirits work. I even got a chance to do this limited edition stamp for the UN and USPS. At the time, it was funny, I was working for this agency and the CD was very hesitant to give me this opportunity. He didn't feel like freelancers should be doing it. So he gave me something like 6 hours to come up with a concept. They needed one more for the deck. Guess who's got chosen? So along with freedom, I built an unexpected toolkit. I was very accustomed to starting over. I could get in, get settled quickly. I knew how to collaborate with people. I was also not shy at all about speaking up. I never had time for that shit. I'm gonna tell you exactly what I think when I think it. I was seeing the same problem solved 20 different times, 20 different ways. I could think very quickly, and I thrive in uncertainty. I also became the I know a guy, right? Like, I collected professional connections the same way that I was collecting these skills. You need to print something on cans, you need INX colors, I know a guy. You're making a rechargeable fragrance bottle, I know a guy. Trying to make some bespoke glass, guess what? I know a guy. But, I was the new person over and over and over again. It never quite really a part of the team, I was never really accepted by everybody. I was with another agency once for on and off for a year, and it was Christmas time. Everyone was giving Christmas bonuses. I, of course, did not get a Christmas bonus. What I did get was a giant golf umbrella, a yellow golf umbrella. If you've ever been in NYC and you know what it's like when it's raining, you don't use a golf umbrella. Clearly, this decision was made by somebody at the London office. So if you're ever in New York and you need an umbrella, try something small. Eventually, though, things will change, and life finds a way to change your path. My little homie was born. I used to love taking him out with me to the laundromat, to the bodega, but we decided we didn't want to raise a kid in New York. I wanted a driveway. I wanted a washer and dryer. I wanted a dishwasher. I wanted a safe place to ride a bike. No judgments, though. I have plenty of friends who raised amazing kids in the city. It's just not what we wanted to do. So I started to apply jobs all over the country. And at the time, though, I had a solid portfolio, but I had one real job on my resume. It was the very first one I had, and it was 10 years old. It felt like I was starting over again, and I was right here again. So I rolled the dice, and we ended up here in Austin, Texas, and I made all of my breakfast dreams come true. Austin, Texas. I came for the migas, stayed for the job. But, again, same problem, right? I was still struggling to find the right fit. Found work, just not something that I wanted to really stay in for very long. So I went back to what I knew. I went right back to freelancing. I was able to work with a ton of agencies here in town, but I was also still taking on New York work during this period, more whiskey stuff. Got to do a range of cool work, pizza puzzles. Even got to go back to that fragrance agency and did some work with them. Started doing some more Texas stuff. I started taking on my own clients as well. And I had the opportunity to fly back to New York to do this rebrand. Did this in 3 weeks, sprint. I'm really proud of this work. I can't believe when I'm going to the store and I get to see this because they're using my new updated word mark. I got to redraw the eagle. This was also one of the very few occasions where I was actually given credit for my work. Usually, thank you. Usually, as a freelancer, you're not really credited publicly, and you're also not allowed to share the work publicly, which I totally get. I understand. But I can neither confirm nor deny the existence of one or more cease and desist letters. But I eventually had an opportunity to work with freelance with Gorilla Suit on a really cool rebrand project for a local brewery. It was my happy place. I could do this. I've been there, done that a ton of times. Let's do it again. So I came for the freelance, but I stayed for the teamwork. Yeah. I'm really proud of this work. I got to meet up with the entire team at the brewery for a kickoff. We were all just vibing and talking shop, and it really felt good. I had an amazing experience collaborating with the team on this, and I think it shows in the work. But something felt different this time, right? Something was a little different for me. This time, something clicked. I remember sitting with Hannah, talking about brand strategy, sketching ideas on napkins with Ryan. They were listening to me, and they were trusting my experience. This time, I felt accepted. I felt valued. I felt the same way I did at that first job. I was just making cool shit with cool people. And at one point, I even moved all my shit over to an empty desk without asking. And I was like, yeah, I'm sitting here now. So I stayed. I kept wanting to stay, and I didn't want to leave. And it turns out it was mutual. I was lucky enough to get a job offer. Of course, I accepted. I found it. The small but mighty agency, a place to learn and grow. It was the long game I was looking for. So 6 years of making cool shit with cool people. I had the pleasure of taking on this rebrand, did it top to bottom, every single touch point you can think of. I got to pull out all my tricks, shove as much type in there as I can get, push the client to do some cool stuff. I actually have this neon hanging in my garage. Fucking love it. I got to work on the team, where we were each bringing different skill sets. This was a rebrand where, there was Ryan and Luigi were taking on kind of the bigger picture stuff here. I got a chance just to do a whole range of illustrations. There's all different kinds of illustrations throughout the store and how they're being used. I love doing this stuff because I get to take my son to Academy and he always looks for all the drawings. Ryan also led a rebrand for Hat Creek. Again, got to change up my style, see what else I can bring to the table. Maybe it's something a little more fun, a little more expressive. Ryan was directing everything from food photography to the menus. Got to do a little step up, maybe a little slightly more mature illustration style for the food. And I also had the honor of rebranding a local iconic pizza shop. Shout out to Steph for the drone shot here. Pizza boxes, all kinds of silly ideas. I had this concept of rolling the dice with all the ingredients on it, so you get to the counter and you don't know what you want, you can just, kind of just highlight all the crazy ingredients those guys have. We had this whole idea of the dark arts of pizza making, We know what you want. There's just been a lot of work over the last couple of years. And I really wish I could share everything, but there's some snippets. Some more beer stuff, apparel, merchandise. Got back into doing some poster work. Did this blacklight poster this year for Hot Luck. It's been very rewarding for me, and I'm very proud of everything we've done together. It only took 20 years. The scenic route was not wasted time, right? Being a nomad gave me really diverse experiences. It ended up giving me really diverse perspectives and skills. So, some final unsolicited advice from a career nomad. If it ain't going right, go left. Movement is medicine. The path to growth or success, for lack of a much better word, is rarely ever forward. It's also not a straight line. And you can and will make good shit anywhere you go. We're creatives, man. We're always going to make good stuff. But it's a lot more fun doing it with a team. So find your people. And I promised stickers. So if anyone wants stickers, I got stickers up here. Thank you. And so the question is did I feel like I was in a box or that I was being sort of pigeonholed as the spirits guy? Yes, but I liked it. I was kind of into it. There's such a range there of where and how you can kind of express premium and what kind of brands are looking for these work. At the time, I really just embraced it because I was doing so much other, of my own work, and I got to be more expressive there. That if I was getting work from the spirits pipeline, I was like, I'm fine with that, man. Keep it coming. Yeah. Any questions? Yes. Were there things I did on my own time to hone my craft better? I think just keeping my plate full. I didn't say no to much. I was always taking on more and more illustration work. So for me at that time, that was what I was trying to push. I was doing tons of, really type-heavy things with spirits. So anytime I could get a chance to do more creative, custom illustration work, I was like, yeah, bring it on. That's a really good question. So how did I pivot away from spirits work and convince clients to let me do other things? It's funny you mention that. I always refer to this as the Denny's menu effect, where it's kind of like, if you're drunk and you're at Denny's and you're trying to pick out what you want, you don't read the menu, you just point at the picture. I feel like clients do this. They only look at your portfolio and let you do what they see you've done before. It's hard to kind of make that leap. The way I did that was I had friends who had ended up in these design director positions. They were the ones hiring people out, so they could see past it. So a lot of times the agencies, because they're fellow creatives, they know you're capable. So they would get something and they're like, oh man, Mike could do this. Mike might be a good fit for this. So I kind of lucked out in that way. So am I still printmaking right now, or? Yeah, so at that time, yes, I had a full screen print shop in my studio. We were printing product, we were wholesaling product at the time too. We used to do all those pop-up markets and all kinds of stuff. That was what I was doing with my partner, my wife at the time as well. But when I moved here, I moved the entire print shop here, parked it in my garage, and then a year in was like, yeah, no, I gotta sell this. So I actually sold the whole thing. These days, I still deeply love production, and I really understand it, and I like doing it, but actually physically printing anymore, no, I don't actually physically print anymore, but I just leave that to the professionals here in town. Kong, Ryan is here, so if you guys ever need print shop work, Kong's your man. Industry is also a wonderful partner here in town, so I kind of leave it to those guys who have a much nicer setup. Which one? The ones currently now, depends on what it is, right? I'm not printing the bottles necessarily, but the poster that you saw, we had a print shop here in town print it.
Hold on. Everybody wave at this guy. It's
oh, yeah.
Wait. He's not looking yet. Hold on.
Excuse me, sir.
Hold on.
Hello?
No.
Nope.
Someone knock on the glass.
No.
Oh God, this is not happening. Sorry, this chance only comes once in a lifetime, right? He's really busy.
That is terrifying. I would never do that. I would say the majority of what I do does end up getting printed. I do more physical work than I do digital. Whenever I can, I love to actually make something. I want to hold it in my hand. I want to touch it, you know? So what is my workflow? Depends on what it is, really. A lot of times, the first thing I do is I have a deep collection of books, ephemera, all kinds of magazines, comic books, just random shit. I have this little cave of wonders in the office where I kind of surround myself with all this stuff, my collections of bric-a-brac. The first thing I do is I start there. I turn on the light, I pull out all the books, I just start flipping. And I'm just looking for stuff. And usually when I'm looking, I kind of dog-ear things or put little stickers on stuff that I like, even if it's not appropriate for that project. So as I'm looking through, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that thing. Oh yeah, that little circle's kind of cool. Oh, that badge is neat. And I just kind of start there. And I take pictures of my phone, I bring it all up to the screen, and I just kind of start sifting through until I kind of find an idea that like, oh, if I combine that with this and I put a fish on it, yeah, that's cool. You know, or if I can sneak a skull in, I'm gonna do that too. That's a good question. My most thrilling project, I would say right now, I feel like Tecate was one for me, just because it's fucking everywhere. It's really fun to go to the grocery store, and I do this with my son all the time. Like, we go through the beer aisle. He's like, "Which ones did you do?" So that one's always fun. I get to see it. I get to touch it. I get to see how other agencies are implementing it into the experience work, into like all the different touch points, how they're kind of reinterpreting it. That one was really thrilling. And then also Eastside Pies. It's just, you get to see a giant sign like rotating with your artwork on it. Like, that's fucking cool.
All right, so we're all going to get pizza and beer after this.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's give it up to Mike, for Mike.
Thank you.
Hug or high five.
Yeah.
Okay.